What's good, everybody? Hope you guys enjoyed your Thanksgiving break. Back at it again with our midterm review. We're going to go over several different topics and problems. Hope you guys stay tuned. Hit the like button for us, subscribe to the channel. So, in our first problem, guys, it asks us which is equivalent to the expression that they give us. And what we have to understand is that we are going to multiply. And typically, an error that I see students make is that they only multiply the first terms with each other and then they go back and multiply the last two terms. But guys, this is wrong. So if we got an answer of 12x squared minus 16, that is going to be wrong. So I'm going to solve this problem, and what we're going to do, we're going to set up our box method and understand that what is grouped in parentheses has to stay together. So if I put 3x on top, that means that minus 8 has to be on top with it. And the same thing applies to 4x and 2. So now once we multiply through, we use properties of exponents and we have 12x squared minus 32x plus 6x minus 16. So at this step here, guys, we've now multiplied and our final answer is going to be a trinomial. We'll have three terms. And the key indicator is to make sure that we combine our like terms. So negative 32 and positive 6 is going to give me a negative 26. So my final answer would be 12x squared minus 26x minus 16, which is answer choice D. So please, guys, when it asks for equivalent, they're just asking for something that is the same or it has the same value. All right. And the box method is going to be a very good way to make sure that we FOIL and multiply all the correct terms. So we go on now down to problem number 2. In problem number 2, we're solving an inequality with a fraction. And they're asking us for the solution set. So they're basically asking us for all the numbers that are included in our answer, because an inequality is not just one single answer, it's a range of numbers. So I go through and we're going to have to get rid of this fraction to solve. So what I'm going to do is, for my first step, I'm going to move that 13 by subtracting it. So after I subtract, what I'm going to have is negative 2/3 x is greater than or equal to negative 14. Okay. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply by 3 so that we can get rid of our fraction, right? And once we multiply, let's just make sure this is right. We're going to get negative 2x is greater than or equal to negative 42. So at this step right here, we're going to pause, right? Because everyone typically solves the inequalities very good, but there's one key tip that we cannot forget. So when x is negative, right, and we're dividing by a negative, that means that the inequality symbol has to flip. So as a result, our answer is going to be x is now less than or equal to negative 42 divided by negative 2, which is positive 21. So at this step, we solved it. And what students are going to do is go through and also encircle their answer choice C. But guys, this is not 100% correct. So if they're asking us for the solution set, they're asking for all the possible answers. And if our answer is x is less than or equal to 21, that means that any answer that is less than 21 is also a part of the solution set. So that means we're going to have to circle B. Oh, sorry, had the eraser on. We're going to circle C, B, and A, because all those answers are either equal to or less than 21. So please make sure you guys remember that when you're answering inequalities. One, we have to flip the sign if x is negative and we divide or multiply by that negative. And two, we also have to make sure that if it asks us for the solution set, we include all the possible answers. Okay? All right. So we go on down to our next problem. And in our next problem, we have properties of exponents. And before we start solving, let's see if we could eliminate some of these answers. Because I always tell my students, use process of elimination. If you get confused, use your process of elimination because you can narrow down your answer choices. So the first thing we need to know, we have negative 4x to the negative third power, y to the negative fifth, and they ask us to square that. So everybody knows that 4 to the second power, right? Negative 4 to the second power is equal to negative 4 times negative 4, which is positive 16. A lot of students are going to go through and think it's negative 4 times 2, which gives us negative 8. Please just make sure that you remember that very important tip. So, with that being said, guys, we could cancel or cross out C and E as an answer choice because we know those are wrong. So, let's do some a little erasing, right? All right. So, we eliminated some answer choices. Now, let's see if we can actually figure out what the correct answer is. So we know that negative 4 squared, that's going to give me a positive 16, right? So A, B, and C all have positive 16. Now, when we go to our exponents, x to the negative 3, y to the negative fifth power, we multiply the exponents now. So what that means is I'm going to have x to the negative 6, y to the negative 10, right? So now at this step, they're saying to us, all right, what could possibly be an answer? And right now, we know that D is a possible answer choice. When we look at our other two answer choices, those two answer choices are going to be incorrect because of our negative exponents, right? So now we solved number three, right? We got D as an answer choice. Now what we're going to do is we're going to move on down to problem number four. So on problem number four, they're asking us to rearrange the formula. So we're not solving, there's no values for us to solve, but what we're doing is rearranging the formula so that now the formula has B is equal to. So we're solving for the letter or variable B. So when we look at this equation, right, and let's just slide out a little bit, and we're going to let's stay in red. So we have V is equal to 1 over 3 base times the height. So similar to the last problem, guys, I'm going to get rid of my fraction by multiplying by 3. So when I multiply both sides by 3, my fraction cancels out on one side. And on the other side, I have 3 times V is equal to B times H. So we're one step closer now, but we don't have B absolutely by itself. So for us to get B by itself, we're going to have to do the opposite of B times H, right? So since B and H are being multiplied, we're now going to divide by H so that we can get B by itself. And as a result, we know B is going to be equal to 3 times the volume divided by the height. And like I said, we're just rearranging the formula to solve for the base. There's nothing else further that we're going to do or that we can do. So as a result, we know that our answer choice is going to be C, right? So when you're rearranging formulas, guys, we're using the same exact skills that we would use when we solve equations, isolate variables, and combine like terms, if possible. All right. So we continue with our midterm review. So now we're talking about properties of equality. And the first thing I need to tell you guys is you know how to do this. Okay. This is just basically solving an equation. They're going to solve the equation for you. And now they want you to identify the steps that were taken. And typically, the first step is always going to be given. And I tell my students, right? I tell them, hey, draw arrows, okay? And we're going to also number this as well. Right? So let's number this so it can make a little bit more sense. So what they're saying, right, is when we look, and let's number this too, right? When we look in the statement section for line number 2, we're saying what property did they use so that they can move from step 1 to step 2. That is probably the most challenging thing about this, is just understanding where or how to start the problem. So if we understand now, they use the distributive property of equality, or just distributive property, depends on your teacher. I like to say distributive property. So they use the distributive property, right, of equality. And what that means is that they multiplied 4 and what was inside the parentheses. That's how we have 4x plus 12 is equal to 20. Now, from that step, to get from 4x plus 12 is equal to 20 to get to 4x is equal to 8, what did we do? And if you ever get confused, I tell my students, solve the problem. Try to solve it. And the only way that we can get 4x is equal to 8 is if we subtract 12 from both sides. So now that we know what we did, we're going to put our answer down as the subtraction property of equality. Because that's what we did, right? We subtracted. Almost made a mistake. So now, and typically this is always the last step in most problems, to actually get an answer, right? 4x is equal to 8. To get from that step to x is equal to 2, we had to divide. So our last proof would be the division property of equality. All right. So like I said, guys, when we get properties of equality questions like this, remember, they're just asking you to list the properties that we use to solve. And if you get confused, just do the steps. Do the steps with the problem. That should help you understand how to get the problem right. And just remember how the steps are ordered, right? Okay. So now we're going to go over the slope. And this is going to be a fill in the blank answer, or question, I should say. So, what they say to us is a line on a coordinate plane has a y intercept of 6, okay, and a slope of -2/3. And then it says, what is the slope intercept form of this line? So, this is a easy question if you remember what the slope intercept form is. So slope intercept form, that's that equation, y is equal to mx plus b. And we know that m is our slope and b is the y intercept. Okay. So essentially, basically, what they're saying to us is, hey, look, we gave you all the information. We told you what the slope is. We told you what the y-intercept is. And we told you we wanted in slope-intercept form. How should the equation look? And guys, I'm going to tell you right now, it's just a quick plug-in. That is it. It's a quick plug-in. We're going to use that same equation. So our answer should be y is equal to m. They told us what m is. The slope is -2/3. After the slope always comes the variable x, right? So we have y is equal to -2/3x, and then we have a y-intercept of +6. So if it's +6, that just means +6, and that is our answer right there. So if you have a slope-intercept form question, you first have to remember the equation or form that you're going to use. Once you do, we could just plug this in real quick and, well, plug in, substitute, and then we have our equation. All right. And like I said, I hope you guys are finding this video helpful. If you do, leave a comment down below for us. Let us know some interesting parts of the video or something that you learned new. And also hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. All right. So now we're going down, and our next question, we're talking about functions. Oh my goodness. Functions and function notation is such a hassle, but your boy Peters, I got you. So it says the local bowling alley charges $2 or charges each person $2 to rent shoes and $3 per game. What function represents the model used to determine the price? All right. So what we have to understand is there's two different things, right? So they're being charged for shoes. So we know no matter what, they're going to pay $2 for shoes. All right. So doesn't matter how many games you play, you're gonna pay at least $2 one time per shoes. And then we know that for each game, we're gonna pay $3 each game, right? And now they're asking us what is the function that they would use to model this situation. So we what we need to understand is that our variable, right? What would X stand for? What is something that we do not know? And that question or answer, I should say, is we do not know the number of games, right? That's one piece of information we don't know. We know the price per game, and we know they have to pay $2 to play. So, what this means in this problem is that my variable is more than likely going to be attached to the $3 per game because that's the unknown. We don't know how many games. Once we figure out the amount of games, then we'll have to take that amount of games and multiply by the price of the game. All right. So that's just some basic information. So, what does that mean in terms of the problem? That means that when we look at our model, right, we're going to have to pay $2 for shoes and $3 per games, but we don't know the amount of games. So when we look at our answers, we know that A can't be an answer choice because it doesn't factor in or include the $2 per game, right? We look at B, well, they didn't say anything about $5, and we can't add those together because you don't pay $2 per game per shoe. No, you pay $2 one time, and the rest of money that you pay is based on the number of games. So we know that this is not true. So now we get down to C and D, and we know that one of these has to be our answer. And we should know that the correct answer choice is C. The reason why is like I said, we know that our what's going to change is the amount of games, right? And each game is worth $3. So that's why our variable will be attached to 3. And after we pay the price per games played, we're just gonna pay a one-time fee of $2 for the shoe. All right. Hopefully I didn't get you, it didn't confuse you guys, but that was more of understanding the concept than really math. All right. So in this problem, our answer choice should be C. Now, when we go over to part D, B, and C, I want you guys to understand that this is a continuation and it's just making sure you understand each component part of the problem. So they say to us the rate of change of the function. The rate of change of the function is your slope, right? And if we look at our answer, let's just write this down. F of x is equal to 3x plus 2, right? Remember, f of x is the same thing as y. So when I put the slope intercept formula here, right, we know that m is our slope. So that's just the number in front of the variable. And rate of change is the same thing as slope, the change in y divided by the change in x. So as a result, my answer choice here for the rate of change is going to be C, which is 3. Now, as we continue with this problem, what we need to understand is now they say the rate of change represents. And it's a trick question. If we were able to create the function, then that means we know what the rate of change represents and what the constant represents. So the constant, which is 2, is that one-time fee of $2 to rent the shoes, and the rate of change represents basically the cost per gain. So we know our answer choice is going to be A, 4-part C, right? Exactly. So nice problem or review, I should say, on functions. Now let's go down, and this we're getting towards the end of our midterm review. So what's going on here is we have a problem where it's fill in the blank, and we're going to simplify when we distribute and multiply radicals. So I'm gonna solve this two different ways. Okay. So number one, anytime you have a radical, you should always try to break it down. Okay. So once we break this down, we know that 27 is going to turn into 9 times 3, right? And once we break that down, we'll get 3 radical 3, okay? And I'll bring down the rest of this first part of the rest of the first part of the problem. All right, so we simplified that first part. Now we're going to simplify the second part and understand, guys. Let's switch colors. Same thing applies. We're going to have 4 times 7, and this is going to give us 2 radical 7. And then I'll bring down the second part of the problem. All right. So this is the thing with math. You have to remember your foundations and your concepts. So when we see this, the first thing we all are going to think is, oh my goodness, these are radicals. Mr. Peters, I don't like working with radicals. But just hold on. If you understand, right, factoring, polynomials, this is just a difference of two squares, right? Or the difference of squares, I should say. Meaning, because they're the same binomials, just one positive and one negative, that means that our middle terms are going to cancel. So we can speed this process up by multiplying the first terms together and the last terms together. And once we do, we're gonna get 4 radical 49, which is basically turns into 4 times 7, which is 28. And then we're going to have minus 9 times, let's see, radical 9, which changes to 9 times 3, which is 27. So our answer really should just be 28 minus 27, which is 1. So for those of you that's saying, whoa, 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 hold on, Mr. Peters, I didn't understand that. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna slide out and we're gonna use our box method, okay? So let's use our box method. And once we use our box method, I think you guys will be able to see it a lot more better, okay? So let's go through and let's rewrite this. So we have 2 radical 7, then we have 3 radical 3, and then we have 2 radical 7, and then negative 3 radical 3. So as I go through this problem again, right, we're going to get the same answers. So we have 4 radical 49, right? That turns into 4 times 7, which equals 28. Okay. Now we're going to do 2 radical 7 times 3 radical 3, and that's going to give us 6 radical 21. Okay. Now, when we go through on the bottom side, we're going to multiply negative 3 radical 3 and 2 radical 7. And now we're going to get the same answer, negative 6 radical 21. So I'm just going to pause right here. When we're adding or combining radicals, right, they have to have the same number under the radical, which they both do, radical 21. So once we add just the numbers in front of the radical, right, 6 minus 6, that gives us 0. So that's why these two terms cancel out. So I just wanted to make sure I showed you guys that so that you understand. And the very last part, like I said, negative 9, radical 9. Once we change that to negative 9 times 3, we'll get 27. And then we'll do our addition and subtraction like I did when we first did the problem. So hopefully you guys found that very helpful and you were able to follow along with me. If not, drop a comment down below. Let me know so I could go over it again in our live stream video. We're going to have a live stream video December 7th at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Please make sure you guys join us. All right. So we're back here. We're on our very last problem of the day. We're talking about fractional exponents going from radical form to rational form. And once we have these type of exponents, guys, we have to remember how it translates, right? So we know that that top number is going to be our power. The bottom number is our root, also known as the index. So when we write that into our radical form, this is where these terms should be. And I've told you guys before in our radical videos, anytime our root or index is 2, that's a regular square root. We do not put 2 there, okay? So now we know, and we're going to switch this over to the correct form, right? Into radical form. I know my base is x, so that's what's under the radical, right? I have a power of 3, right? And then the root, like I said, is 2. So if we have a root of 2, we do not put it. So I drew an arrow here. If it is 2, we do not put the root. So as we look at this problem here, we should know that our correct answer choice is going to be B, right? When we look at A, for our answer to be A, the base would have to be 3x. When we look at our original problem, the base is only x by itself, okay? Part C, what they did was they switched the base, I mean, not the base, they switched the power and the root around. So if we wanted C to be the correct answer, the fraction would have had to been x to the 2/3 power. And obviously that is not what we had, all right? So we're going to wrap this midterm review up. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. I'm Mr. Peters with the Algebra 1 midterm review. Please join us December 7th, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're going to do our very first live session where we're going to go more in depth on equations and other topics to help you guys get ready for your midterms. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. So hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, and thank you guys for all the support. It's Algebra 1 with Mr. Peters.